Hello everyone, today I have an amazing story for you. It's not just for your listening practice but also to inspire you. The story is called Nothing is Free, and it will show you that hard work and determination can change lives. There was a young woman named Margaret, 21 years old, living in a small, quiet town surrounded by mountains. Margaret had big dreams. She wanted to own a chain of restaurants and become a successful entrepreneur. But life wasn't easy for her. Margaret's family was struggling financially. Her father, Mark, was a mechanic, and her mother, Claire, cleaned houses to make ends meet. Margaret's younger sister, Sophie, was just 10 and looked up to her as her hero. One cold evening, Margaret sat outside her small house staring at the stars. She whispered to herself, "I want to give my family a better life, but how do I start when we barely have enough to survive the next day?" Margaret shared her dreams with her father. Mark sighed and said, "Margaret, dreams are not free. If you want something, you have to fight for it. Start with what you have, even if it's small." Margaret thought deeply about her father's words. Then an idea struck her. She noticed that in her town, people loved fresh bread but had to travel to a bakery far away. She decided to start selling fresh bread locally, but there was a problem. Margaret had no money to buy the bread. She decided to take a chance and approach the bakery's owner, Mr. Anderson. Margaret walked miles to meet Mr. Anderson, a grumpy old man who rarely trusted anyone with confidence. Margaret said, "Mr. Anderson, I want to sell your bread in my town, but I don't have money to buy it up front. Can you trust me for 1 week? I will sell the bread, return your money, and keep a small profit." Mr. Anderson raised an eyebrow. "And why should I trust you, young lady?" he asked. Margaret replied firmly, "Because I am determined and I will work hard to prove myself." After a long pause, Mr. Anderson said, "All right, I'll give you bread for 1 week. If you fail to pay me back, don't bother coming here again." Margaret was thrilled. Early the next morning, she carried the bread back to her town and set up a small stand near the park. She greeted every passerby with energy and a smile, saying, "Fresh bread, warm and delicious." At first, people were hesitant. They didn't know if the bread was good, but Margaret offered free samples and soon had her first customer. By the end of the day, she had sold all the bread and made a small profit that evening. She returned to Mr. Anderson and paid him back. The old man nodded and said, "You kept your word. Come back tomorrow." From then on, Margaret worked tirelessly. She woke up at 4 a.m., walked to the bakery, carried bread to her town, and sold it with passion. After 2 months, she had saved enough money to buy a small cart, making it easier to transport more bread. One day, a customer suggested, "Margaret, why don't you bake your own bread? You're good at selling, but if you bake, you'll make more profit." This idea excited Margaret, but it also scared her. She had never baked anything in her life. This was the moment where Margaret realized nothing is free, not success, not knowledge, not growth. If I want to succeed, I must take risks and learn. Margaret couldn't stop thinking about the idea of baking her own bread. If she could bake, she wouldn't have to rely on Mr. Anderson and her profit would grow. But there was one big problem: she didn't know how to bake. Margaret decided to ask Mr. Anderson for help. The next morning, after delivering her payment, Margaret said, "Mr. Anderson, can you teach me how to bake?" The old man frowned. "Why should I teach you? If you bake, you won't buy from me anymore. That's bad for my business." Margaret looked at him and said, "You're right, but I won't forget the man who gave me my first chance. If I succeed, I'll make sure to help your bakery too." Mr. Anderson thought for a moment, then said, "Fine, but baking isn't easy. It takes time, patience, and hard work. If you're ready for that, I'll teach you." The lessons began. Early the next morning, Margaret arrived at the bakery at 3 a.m. before the sun was up. Mr. Anderson showed her how to mix flour, knead the dough, and bake it perfectly at first. Margaret struggled. Her hands hurt from kneading, and her bread came out too hard or too soft one day. After ruining another batch of bread, Margaret sat down feeling defeated. She said to herself, "Maybe I'm not good enough for this, maybe I should give up." But then she remembered her father's words. Dreams are not free. She realized that every mistake was teaching her something new. Giving up was not an option. The next day, Margaret went back to the bakery with even more determination. She practiced every single step carefully, slowly. Her bread started improving. After 2 weeks, Mr. Anderson handed her a loaf and said, "This is perfect, Margaret. You're ready." Margaret was overjoyed. She rented a small oven and began baking bread at home. Her family was amazed by her hard work. Sophie, her little sister, helped her pack the bread, and her mother made tea for her while she worked late into the night. Soon, Margaret wasn't just selling bread. She started making cookies and pastries to people in the town. Loved her products, they said. "Margaret's bread tastes better than anything we've had before," but success wasn't easy. One day a new bakery opened in the town run by a young man named Eric. Eric had a big fancy shop with colorful signs and decorations. People were curious and started buying from him instead. Margaret noticed her sales dropping. She felt scared. What if she lost everything she worked so hard for? But instead of panicking, Margaret decided to improve. She listened to her customers and asked, "What do you like about Eric's bakery?" "What can I do better?" Some said. "Eric's shop looks clean and pretty." Others said his cakes have beautiful designs. Margaret realized she needed to grow not just as a baker, but as a businesswoman using her savings. Margaret painted her cart, added bright decorations, and started offering free samples of her new pastries. She even learned how to decorate cakes by watching videos in the library. Slowly, customers returned to her. One evening, an elderly woman came to Margaret and said, "I've seen many young women give up when times get hard, but you didn't. That's why we trust you." Her words filled Margaret with pride. Months passed and Margaret's business grew. She saved enough money to rent a small shop. It wasn't as big as Eric's, but it was warm and welcoming. She named it Margaret's Fresh Bakes. Every morning she woke up before sunrise, baked fresh bread, and opened her shop with a smile. Her parents and sister helped her. Sophie, now 11, loved talking to customers, and Claire managed the accounts. But Margaret knew this wasn't the end of her journey. She wanted to reach more people, make her family proud, and prove to herself that anything is possible with hard work. Margaret's Fresh Bakes was becoming the heart of the town. People loved her fresh bread, cakes, and pastries. Business was growing, and her family was proud of her. But life wasn't done testing Margaret one stormy night. As Margaret was closing her shop, she noticed smoke coming from the bakery. She rushed inside and saw that a small fire had started near the oven. She quickly grabbed water and managed to stop the flames, but much of her equipment was damaged. The next morning, when the townspeople heard about the fire, they came to check on her. Some said, "Oh no, what will Margaret do?" Now others whispered, "Maybe this is the end for her." Margaret felt heartbroken but not defeated. She stood outside her bakery and said, "This is just a challenge. I've faced struggles before and I will face this too. I won't give up." She took a deep breath and began making a plan. She calculated how much money she had saved and realized it wasn't enough to replace all the equipment. For a moment, fear crept in, but Margaret remembered her journey, how she started with nothing but a dream and hard work. Instead of sitting and worrying, Margaret asked for help. She approached Mr. Anderson, who had retired, and said, "Sir, I need advice. What would you do if you were me?" Mr. Anderson smiled and said, "Margaret, you already know the answer. You've taught yourself that nothing is free. Work harder, believe in yourself, and people will believe in you too." Inspired, Margaret decided to rebuild. She didn't wait for someone to rescue her. She started baking at home again with the little equipment she had left. She told her customers, "I won't let you down. I'll keep serving you, even if it's just a small amount for now." The townspeople admired her courage. Many of them started helping her. Some donated ingredients, others gave small amounts of money, and a few offered their time to help her clean and repair the bakery. Margaret realized something important: when you work hard and never give up, people notice. They want to help someone who helps themselves after months of hard work. Margaret reopened her bakery. It was better than ever. She painted the walls, added new decorations, and even introduced new items like cupcakes and muffins. Her customers were overjoyed. On the day of the grand reopening, the town's mayor came and said, "Margaret, you are a true inspiration. You've shown us all that with determination, anything is possible." Margaret stood in front of the crowd and said, "I want to thank each one of you. You've taught me that nothing in life is free, not success, not respect, not love. Everything must be earned with hard work, patience, and persistence. Never let failure stop you. Every challenge is just a step to something greater." From that day, Margaret's bakery didn't just sell bread, it became a symbol of hope. People from other towns started visiting to meet the young woman who never gave up. Margaret's story teaches us that when dreams are not free, they require hard work and sacrifice. To failure is not the end. It's a chance to learn and grow stronger. 3. Help yourself first. When people see your effort, they will support you. For never give up. The darkest moments are often just before success. Margaret didn't just build a bakery. She built a life full of purpose, respect, and pride. And so can you. Whatever your dream is, don't stop chasing it. Remember, nothing is free, but everything is possible. If you want more easy English stories, follow the channel English Easy here.